October 1944. A military truck crosses the gates of Camp Huntsville, Texas, carrying 43 German women into captivity. Inside the vehicle, Helene Bauer sits rigid, her hands gripping the wooden bench beneath her. She is 22 years old, a former radio operator for the Wehrmacht, trained to transmit orders without question. For months, the voice in her headset had been absolute, commands flowing through her fingertips into the vast machinery of war. Now that certainty dissolves with each mile into enemy territory. The propaganda had been clear. Americans were weak, desperate, clinging to their failing economy. The Reich would crush them. Victory was inevitable. Helene had believed every word, because doubt was not an option. Doubt was treason. The truck stops abruptly. Dust settles around the wheels. The canvas cover is ripped back, and harsh sunlight floods the interior. The women shield their eyes, blinking against the brightness that feels like an interrogation. And then they see them. American soldiers, tall, impossibly tall, clean uniforms, healthy faces, white teeth flashing in easy smiles. These men do not look defeated. They do not look hungry. They look like they have never known scarcity. Helene's chest tightens. This cannot be right. The propaganda promised monsters. Instead, she sees men who could be brothers, sons, neighbors, if not for the uniform, if not for the war. Beside her, Anke Weber breaks the suffocating silence. Her voice trembles, but carries a dark humor born from shock. That one could use me as a toothpick. The absurdity of the statement crashes through the tension like a stone through glass. Martha Vogel covers her mouth, but the laugh escapes anyway. Clara Neumann's shoulders shake despite her attempt at composure. Within seconds, all 43 women are laughing. Not with joy, but with the bitter recognition of a lie so enormous it can only be answered with mockery. It is the first act of rebellion, the first crack in the foundation of everything they believed. Near the truck, Sergeant Jack Donovan stands with his arms crossed, watching the women with the careful attention of someone who has learned to read survival in a person's eyes. At 35A, he carries the weight of too many battles, a scar above his left eyebrow, deep lines around his mouth that speak of laughter and loss in equal measure. Young Sam Carter shifts beside him, uncertain. "Are they laughing at us, Sarge?" Donovan shakes his head slowly. "No, Carter. They're laughing at whoever lied to them. That's the sound of propaganda dying." The women climb down one by one, movements stiff from days of travel. Helene is the last to descend. She pauses at the truck's edge, taking in the expanse of Camp Huntsville. Wooden barracks in neat rows, the American flag snapping in the October wind. Beyond the wire fence, the Texas landscape rolls endlessly, so vast, so untouched by war. Captain Margaret Hayes approaches. At 32, she commands authority without aggression. Her Women's Army Corps uniform is pristine, her posture impeccable. She speaks in German, her accent careful but clear. "Welcome to Camp Huntsville. You will be treated according to the Geneva Convention. You will receive food, shelter, and medical care. We do not expect gratitude. We expect only cooperation." The words land like blows. This is not what they were told to expect. The enemy is supposed to be cruel. The enemy is supposed to punish. As the women are led toward the barracks, Helene absorbs details that undermine her worldview. The soldiers do not shout. The camp is clean, painfully clean. There is no smell of rot, no evidence of the economic collapse that supposedly grips America. Inside the barracks, each woman receives a bunk. The mattresses are thin but intact. The blankets are wool, not rags. There are windows with unbroken glass. Marta sits on the bunk beside her, voice barely audible. "This isn't what they told us." Helene does not respond. To speak would be to acknowledge the doubt spreading through her like poison, or perhaps like medicine. Evening arrives. The women are taken to the refectory for their first meal in captivity. They expect scraps, the bare minimum to keep prisoners functional. Instead, they find abundance, potatoes, roasted until golden, fresh bread, actual bread, not the sawdust mixture they have choked down for months. Meat, carrots, green beans, and coffee. Real coffee, not the ersatz brew made from acorns and bitterness. Helene stands frozen, her metal tray trembling in her hands. Around her, 42 other women experience the same paralysis. Some begin eating ravenously, months of hunger overriding confusion. Others hesitate, suspecting a trick. Anka sits heavily, staring at her plate. If the enemy is weak, how can they feed even their prisoners this well? The question hangs in the air like smoke. Clara sets down her fork, her expression troubled. Perhaps we were never told the truth about their weakness. Perhaps we were never told the truth about anything. Helene forces herself to eat. Each bite feels like evidence in a trial she does not want to attend. Every mouthful of potato, every piece of bread, every sip of coffee, all of it testifies against the regime she served. That night, sleep is elusive. Helene lies on her bunk, listening to the quiet breathing of 42 other women wrestling with the same demons. Through the window, she watches the silhouette of a guard on patrol. He is whistling, actually whistling, a melody she does not recognize, but that sounds carefree, unburdened. How can the enemy whistle? Morning arrives with Texas sunlight streaming through the windows. The women are taken to the yard for exercise. Prisoners are supposed to be confined, controlled, broken. Instead, they are given fresh air and space to move. Sergeant Donovan stands near the fence, observing. Sam Carter tosses a baseball to himself, the leather smacking rhythmically against his glove. Anka approaches the fence. Her English is fractured, but determined. "So is why you so tall." Donovan turns, surprised. For a moment, silence stretches between them. Then his face breaks into a genuine smile. "Must be the food." Anka nods seriously, as if this simple answer explains the collapse of her entire worldview. Then she points at Sam's baseball. "What is this game?" Sam's face lights up. He begins explaining, his hands moving in exaggerated throwing motions. The German women watch, comprehending nothing but sensing something important, that in this moment war feels very far away. Captain Hayes observes from a distance. She understands what headquarters does not yet grasp. The most difficult victories are not won with weapons. They are won in moments like these, when propaganda dissolves in the face of undeniable reality. As the morning progresses, Helene sits on a wooden bench, watching her companions interact with their captors. The laughter from yesterday returns, tentative, uncertain, but real. Marta attempts to explain something in German to Sam, who nods enthusiastically despite understanding nothing. And Helene realizes with cold clarity, everything she believed is crumbling, not because of violence or punishment, but because of kindness. Because the enemy refuses to perform the role assigned to them by propaganda. The Reich promised monsters. Instead, they found men who smile, who share food, who whistle at night, who want to explain baseball to strangers, and that is the most terrifying discovery of all. Because if they lied about this, about the weakness of America, about the cruelty of the enemy, what remains true? What foundation can she stand on? The dust swirls in the Texas wind. 43 women stand in a camp thousands of miles from home, discovering that the greatest prison is not made of wire and wood. It is made of lies. And the bars are beginning to bend. The days blend into weeks at Camp Huntsville, and with each sunrise, the walls of propaganda crumble a little more. November arrives with cooler temperatures, though nothing like the brutal European winters the women remember. Here, even the weather refuses to cooperate with their expectations of American hardship. Helene watches the evolution with the careful attention of someone trained to observe and record. She sees patterns emerging, small exchanges that chip away at the designation of enemy. The guards learn fragments of German. The prisoners pick up English words. Language becomes a bridge instead of a barrier. In the laundry room, where steam rises from industrial washing machines and the smell of soap permeates everything, the women work alongside each other. It is here, in the mundane rhythm of daily tasks, that transformation begins. Anka has become bolder. The initial shock has worn off, replaced by curiosity and her natural inclination toward humor. She folds a sheet with exaggerated care, then leans toward Marta. "That sergeant," she says in German, loud enough for others to hear. "He must duck to enter doorways. I wonder if he hits his head often. Perhaps that explains American military strategy." The women around her laugh. It is not malicious laughter. It is the laughter of people learning to breathe again, learning that mockery can be gentle rather than cruel. Sergeant Donovan enters the laundry room at precisely that moment, carrying a clipboard with work assignments. He stops, watching the women laugh, and something in his expression shifts. He has heard enough laughter in his life to distinguish its flavors. This is not the laughter of contempt. This is the laughter of people finding their footing in a strange new world. He approaches Anka, who falls silent, suddenly aware of his presence. "I can tell when someone's talking about me," he says in English, his voice carrying a hint of amusement. Even in German. Anka's face flushes. She glances at Helene, who has been teaching her basic English phrases during their evening hours in the barracks. Anka takes a breath and responds in careful, broken English. "You are very tall. We are surprised." Donovan's face breaks into a genuine laugh, not a polite chuckle, but real laughter that comes from the belly and lights up the eyes. It is the first time the women have heard him truly laugh, and the sound is disarming in its warmth. "My mother used to say I grew too fast for my own good," he replies, speaking slowly so they might understand. "Kept bumping my head on everything." Anka's eyes widen with understanding. She laughs again, and this time it is shared laughter, not German or American, just human. Sam Carter, who has been standing near the door, watches the exchange with fascination. At 23, he is young enough to still believe in the possibility of goodness, young enough to be surprised when people exceed his expectations. He approaches Marta, who is struggling with a particularly stubborn fitted sheet. "Here," he says, taking one end. "My mama taught me this trick." Together, they fold the sheet. No words are exchanged, but something passes between them. A recognition that war has made enemies of people who might, in another world, have been friends. Captain Hayes observes from the doorway. She has been military long enough to understand the danger and the promise of what she is witnessing. Fraternization is discouraged, but what she sees is not fraternization. It is the slow, painful process of people remembering their humanity. She makes a decision, a calculated risk that could earn her a reprimand or could prove the wisdom of compassion. November 23, 1944. Thanksgiving Day. The American soldiers prepare for their traditional feast: turkey, stuffing, cranberry sauce, pumpkin pie. The abundance is staggering, even by American standards. The military has made sure that soldiers far from home feel remembered, valued, fed. Captain Hayes approaches the mess sergeant with a proposal that makes him raise his eyebrows. "You want to include the German prisoners in Thanksgiving dinner?" "I want to treat them according to the Geneva Convention," Hayes replies calmly, "which includes adequate nutrition. If we're having a feast, excluding them sends a message about American values, and not the message we want to send." The mess sergeant considers this. He is a practical man from Iowa, more concerned with logistics than politics. "We've got enough food," he admits. But some of the boys won't like it. "Some of the boys will have to remember that we're fighting for something bigger than revenge," Hayes says firmly. "When the German women are informed they will join the Thanksgiving meal, the reactions vary. Some are suspicious, others are confused. What is Thanksgiving? Why would captors share a celebration with prisoners?" Helene translates Captain Hayes's explanation as best she can, though some concepts do not transfer easily. A holiday about gratitude for abundance, for survival, for new beginnings in a strange land. The irony is not lost on her. They too are strangers in a strange land, though under vastly different circumstances. The refectory has been decorated. Paper turkeys cut by soldiers who miss their children. Hand-drawn cornucopias. The long tables are set with more care than usual, and the smell of roasted turkey fills the air with an almost overwhelming richness. The German women enter hesitantly. American soldiers are already seated, and the atmosphere is complex. Curiosity mixed with resentment, compassion battling with suspicion. These men have friends who died fighting Germans. Some have seen the devastation in Europe firsthand. Forgiveness does not come easily, but Captain Hayes has prepared them. She has reminded them that these women are auxiliaries, not combat soldiers, that they are as much victims of the Nazi regime as anyone, that the power to be merciful is the truest test of strength. The meal begins. Turkey is served, golden brown, falling off the bone, mashed potatoes smooth as cream, green beans with almonds, cranberry sauce, sweet and tart, rolls so soft they seem to dissolve on the tongue. The German women eat slowly at first, as if expecting the food to be taken away. But as the meal continues, as they watch American soldiers eating the same food, laughing and talking around them, something shifts. Sam Carter, emboldened by the holiday spirit or perhaps by his own innate goodness, decides to explain American football to the table of German women near him. He uses salt and pepper shakers as players, demonstrates tackles with exaggerated arm movements, and makes sound effects that transcend language barriers. The women watch with bewilderment that gradually transforms into amusement. The game makes no sense. Why would anyone run toward other people trying to knock them down? But Sam's enthusiasm is infectious. Marta asks a question in halting English. Sam answers, she laughs, he laughs. Others join in. After the meal, someone suggests going outside. The November afternoon is mild, and the yard offers space for movement after so much food. Sam retrieves a football from the equipment shed, not the same as the baseball from weeks before, but another distinctly American artifact. Watch, he says, demonstrating a throw. The football spirals through the air, landing neatly in Donovan's hands. Now you try, Sam says, offering the ball to Anka. She takes it hesitantly, studying its odd shape. She throws. The ball wobbles and drops after a few feet, landing with an unceremonious thud. Everyone laughs, Americans and Germans together. Anka laughs hardest of all, hands on her knees, tears streaming down her face from the absurdity of it all. Here she is, a prisoner of war, learning American football on Thanksgiving Day, thousands of miles from home, laughing with the enemy. Other women try. Clara manages a surprisingly good throw. Marta's attempt goes sideways. Each failure is met with encouragement, with laughter that has lost its edge of nervousness and become something more genuine. Helene stands apart, watching. She has not yet learned to fully participate in these moments of lightness. Her mind is too analytical, too aware of the implications. Every laugh feels like a betrayal of something, though she is no longer certain what. Donovan notices her isolation. He approaches slowly, giving her space to retreat if she chooses. "You don't have to join if you don't want to," he says quietly. Helene looks at him, really looks at him. She sees the scar above his eyebrow, the lines around his eyes, the weariness that no amount of laughter can fully hide. This man has killed. He has watched friends die. He carries his own weight of war. "How do you do it?" she asks in careful English. "How do you laugh after everything?" Donovan is quiet for a moment, watching the impromptu football game. "And because if we don't laugh," he says finally, "we become the thing we're fighting against. We become people who see enemies instead of human beings. We become people who can't remember what we're trying to protect." His words settle into Helene like stones dropped in deep water, sending ripples through everything she thought she understood. The weeks that follow bring routine and with it, a dangerous comfort. The women work their assigned tasks. They eat regular meals. They sleep in beds with blankets. They are not beaten. They are not starved. They are treated as Captain Hayes promised, according to the Geneva Convention. But December brings something that shatters the fragile peace they have constructed. An order comes from headquarters. All prisoners of war are to be shown educational films, documentation of what Allied forces have discovered as they push deeper into German territory. The women are gathered in the camp's small theater room. They sit in folding chairs, confused about what they are about to witness. Captain Hayes stands at the front, her face grave. "What you are about to see," she says in German, "is the truth. It is not propaganda. It is not exaggeration. It is documentation of camps that have been liberated, camps where people were imprisoned not for military service, but for who they were." The lights dim. The projector begins. And for the next hour, the German women are forced to confront images that will haunt them for the rest of their lives. Bergen-Belsen, Dachau, camps whose names will become synonymous with horror, skeletal figures barely alive, mass graves, gas chambers, meticulous German record-keeping that documents industrialized murder. The theater is silent except for the whir of the projector. No one speaks. No one moves. Some women begin to cry quietly. Others sit frozen, faces drained of color. Helene feels bile rise in her throat. This cannot be real. This cannot be what the Reich did. She operated radios. She transmitted orders. She was part of the machinery that the thought does not complete. It cannot complete. When the lights come back on, no one moves. Captain Hayes does not speak immediately. She lets the silence do its work. Finally, Helene finds her voice. It comes out broken, barely above a whisper. "Coercium, how could we not know?" Donovan, who has remained in the back of the room, steps forward. His voice is gentle but firm. Because sometimes obedience is the greatest enemy of truth. Because propaganda works by telling you not to look, not to question, not to think. Because it's easier to believe comfortable lies than uncomfortable truths. The women file out slowly, each lost in her own horror. The laughter that has been building over weeks is gone, replaced by crushing weight of collective guilt. That night, the barracks are silent in a different way than before. This is not the silence of exhaustion or uncertainty. This is the silence of people confronting the abyss of their own complicity. Helene lies on her bunk, staring at the ceiling. She cannot unsee what she has witnessed. She cannot unknow what she now knows. Every order she transmitted, every message she relayed, what did they contribute to? What machinery of death did her efficiency serve? Days pass in a fog. The women move through their routines mechanically. The guards give them space, understanding that some wounds require time to even begin healing. It is Helene who finally breaks, not with tears, but with a desperate need to do something, anything, that might restore a sense of humanity she feels she has lost. She approaches Captain Hayes during an evening inspection. "I need to ask something," Helene says, her English more confident now, shaped by months of necessity. Hayes stops, giving her full attention. "I want permission to organize something. A performance, music, theater, humor, something to remind us that we are still human, that we can still create something that is not destruction." Hayes studies her carefully. "Sawis?" Helene struggles to articulate what she feels, because silence is death, because if we cannot laugh again, if we cannot create again, then we are just waiting to exist, and I cannot. Her voice breaks. "I cannot carry this weight without something to balance it. I need to prove that there is still something worth preserving in us." Captain Hayes is quiet for a long moment. This is irregular. This could be seen as too lenient. But she has learned to trust her instincts about what serves justice better than punishment. "You have permission," she says finally, "but it must be appropriate. No politics, no propaganda, only art." Helene's eyes brighten for the first time in days. "Only art," she promises, "only humanity." The announcement spreads through the barracks like wildfire. A performance, a show. An opportunity to create something that is not about war, not about guilt, not about the crushing weight of what they now know. Some women respond with immediate enthusiasm. Others are hesitant, wondering if they have the right to laugh, to sing, to entertain after what they have learned. But Helene is insistent. "We do not perform to forget," she tells them during an evening meeting. "We perform to remember that we are still capable of creating beauty, that we are more than what we have been part of." Anka is the first to volunteer. Her humor, which has been subdued since the films, begins to flicker back to life. She suggests sketches, gentle mockery of cultural differences, observations about camp life. Nothing cruel, nothing political, just the absurdities of daily existence. Marta offers to sing. She has a clear, pure voice that she has kept hidden, as if beauty had no place in war. Now she dusts off old folk songs, not military anthems, but songs about home, about seasons, about simple human longing. Clara, the most serious among them, surprises everyone by suggesting they include the Americans, not as audience only, but as participants. The suggestion creates immediate tension. "Why would they want to be part of our show?" someone asks. "Because," Clara says quietly, "healing must go both directions. They need to see us as human." We need to see them as human. Art is the bridge. Helene approaches Sergeant Donovan with the proposal. He listens carefully, arms crossed, expression unreadable. You want American soldiers to perform alongside German prisoners. I want human beings to create something together, Helene corrects, even if only for one night. Donovan considers this. He thinks about the men under his command, young men who have seen too much death, who carry their own wounds, visible and invisible. Perhaps they need this as much as the women do. I'll ask for volunteers, he says, but I can't promise anyone will agree. Sam Carter volunteers immediately. He has been waiting for something like this, an opportunity to bridge the gap he feels every day, standing guard over people he increasingly sees as friends rather than enemies. 2 other soldiers join, a corporal from Tennessee who plays harmonica, a private from New York who does impressions that make even hardened sergeants laugh. The rehearsals begin in the recreation hall. Awkward at first, people who speak different languages, who have been enemies, now trying to coordinate timing and jokes and musical cues. But slowly, something emerges. Anka's sketch about the height differences between Germans and Americans makes everyone laugh. Sam's demonstration of how Germans try to pronounce Thanksgiving becomes a running gag. The harmonica and German folk songs blend unexpectedly well. Captain Hayes watches from the doorway, her expression carefully neutral, but something in her eyes suggests satisfaction. This is what victory should look like, not domination, but transformation. February 14th, 1945, Valentine's Day. Though the Germans do not know this American tradition, the recreation hall has been transformed. Makeshift curtains, borrowed lights, chairs arranged in rows. The audience consists of soldiers, officers, and the German women not performing. The atmosphere is electric with anticipation and nervousness. Helene steps forward to open the show. She has written her introduction in English, practiced it until the words feel natural in her mouth. When we arrived at Camp Huntsville, she begins, her voice steady. We believed you were weak. We believed you were our enemies. We believed many things that were not true. She pauses, letting the weight of those words settle. Now we know that the greatest strength is not in weapons or walls. The greatest strength is in the ability to laugh together, even after everything. Maybe especially after everything. The performance unfolds like a conversation between cultures. Music flows into comedy. Personal stories become universal truths. When Anka makes her joke about Sergeant Donovan needing custom door frames, he stands and takes an exaggerated bow, and the room explodes with laughter. Genuine, healing laughter. Sam performs a duet with Marta, his broken German and her broken English, creating something beautiful in its imperfection. The harmonica player accompanies a German lullaby, and grown soldiers wipe their eyes discreetly. The finale is simple. All performers on stage, Americans and Germans together, singing a song about home. Not any specific home, but the universal longing for peace, for safety, for the end of war. When the final notes fade, the audience rises in applause. It is not polite applause. It is thunderous, cathartic, the sound of people releasing something they did not know they were holding. Backstage, in the chaos of congratulations and relief, Donovan finds Helene. You did something important tonight, he says quietly. Helene shakes her head. We did something important, all of us. We proved that humanity persists, even here, even now, even after everything. Outside, the February night is clear and cold. Stars shine above Camp Huntsville, the same stars that shine over Europe, over battlefields, over cities in ruins. Inside the recreation hall, people who were enemies months ago share coffee and cake, tell stories, laugh at shared jokes. The war is not over. The guilt is not erased. The horror of what they have learned cannot be forgotten. But for one night, in a prisoner of war camp in Texas, people chose to see each other as human beings. And that choice, that simple, difficult, revolutionary choice, is its own kind of victory.